Good day, everybody. I want to welcome you to the NACTA webinar series. My name is Lorene Romero, and I am going to be your moderator today. Today, our special guest is Jim Smith from Special Needs Group. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping, then I am putting myself on mute and handing the reins over to Jim. First off, everybody is on mute. That's just as a courtesy to Jim so that he can talk as much as he wants, although none of you will be able to tell him if you think his jokes are funny or not. That's the bad news. The good news, this allows a clear presentation, and we are recording this so that way you can listen to it in the future. As a reminder, we will have this webinar up on the NACTA YouTube channel. I encourage everybody to subscribe to our NACTA channel. It has any other webinars that we have done. It has tips and tricks videos from Lisa Watson to be able to update your one sheet. How do you change your NACTA profile? How do you change your passcode? All those little things that we need that you can just see a step-by-step process. This is recorded, as I mentioned. We will also send a follow-up email in a couple of days that will have the link for this. So I am going to put myself on mute for now. If you have any questions, I encourage you to put them in the question box. That's going to be on the right-hand side. And at the end, we will have a Q&A question time for you guys to ask your questions. So Jim, you're on. I'm putting myself on mute so that way you don't have to hear my squeaky chair.
I like your squeaky chair. Well, thank you, Lorene. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, regardless of what time zone you're residing in. And more than anything, sincere thanks for making the time today to join us. I just would like to make this observation. I didn't realize this was being recorded. And what it made me realize, I've been close to NACTA since way back in the day. Your membership just got that much more valuable. Because when you have that occasional bout of sleeplessness and you have a hard time sleeping at night, just go back to this thing on the NACTA YouTube channel when it's posted, and you'll be fine. You'll be out in 3 seconds. Actually, my job is to do everything but. What we are going to do today, though, is give you a quick overview on the latest and greatest in the world of accessible travel. We're going to be previewing our 3-module online certification program, and the last slide I'm going to speak to today is going to give you a reason to want to get certified with us. Special Needs Group, just to give you a quick overview, we're the largest and leading global provider of special needs, accessibility equipment, oxygen, things for folks that want to travel, maybe think they can't, but definitely need some assistance when they do. Your job, as we'll get into, is tough enough. I used to have your job. I've been in this business since I'm 15 years old. I'm now 62, so I've been at it for about 3 weeks. And there are a lot of things that you need to know to be a great travel professional. You don't need to be a medical professional, and that's what our certification program is all about. And as we get into this, I think it's all going to make a lot of sense and hopefully open your eyes to a market segment that offers a lot of benefits to you, and you can offer a lot of benefits to them. What our goals are today is really to right-size your expectation, where you fit in this mix. We're going to introduce you to the world's fastest growing demographic, and in the process, hopefully exist some of your existing sales skills. Most importantly, we're fighting the web, we're fighting online travel giants, and this will help you to differentiate yourself and truly add some tangible value. And I might get on my knees before this is over and ask you to be an SNG certified accessible travel advocate, and I'll tell you why. We want you to be able to serve the largest and fastest growing segment of the travel industry. And there's one caveat about the visual you're seeing, folks. We don't recommend you do that. I have your clients do that with our equipment. It really shouldn't be used in this manner. But when you think about the world of accessible travel, this is really the spirit of the average American that has a disability. And there's a lot of them, as we'll get into. Disability, I'm a disabled American vet. I was a corpsman in the Navy. I've been around this market segment my entire life for one reason or another. But I can tell you this, disability typically does 2 things to people. The first thing it does is it tends to shut them down. It kind of blows their mind. But the human spirit's an amazing thing. We have an incredible amount of resiliency, and once folks accept their new lot in life, their new station in life, it's give them a rolly board, give them some mobility equipment, some munchies. There's probably some hydration under there, I would hope, for Mobility Pup, a whimsical scarf, and they're on their way. They have a truly indomitable spirit. And the main reason I'm going to ask you to join us and get certified is there's already 3,480 and a couple more of you out there, and we're shooting for 3,500 on the 6th anniversary of the program, which will, ironically enough, be Veterans Day this year. You've never seen us advertise. We don't have an advertising program to support this initiative. And you'll notice there are a lot of programs in the business where you take the specialty program and they call you a specialist or they call you an expert. Well, our program consists of 3 modules. It's 65 minutes online. And I'm sorry, but the only thing you're going to get expert in or become really a specialist in 65 minutes is how not to burn Kraft mac and cheese coming out of a box. All right, we're going to call you a certified accessible travel advocate because there's a lot of things that might come across your plate that you might not be in a position to deal with, but that's why we're here. There's more than enough, though, that will come across your plate if you ask the right questions. And let's talk about what you do for a second, because you got things that you want to do over there on the left in those little yellow bullet point things. You want to expand your client base. You want to differentiate. You want to add more value. But while you're doing that, you're an industry ambassador, because if folks know that you're tied to the travel industry, you're always representing the industry. You're a provider of value and a filler of needs, not just for your clients, but your vendors depend on you to provide value to them. That's why they pay you commissions. And to help fill their needs, which is usually inventory that needs to be moved. And God knows, everybody thinks you're a solver of problems. I had clients when I was a retail travel agent probably thought I could cure cancer, but we can do what we can do. Most importantly, I think, though, if you're an independent contractor, if no matter what you do, no matter what, if you own an agency, work in an agency, you're a brand manager, and that brand is you. Because no matter where you work in this business, who you are follows you. So your brand's important, and I would say protect it with your life. And good salespeople know more than anything else that it's really, really critical to ask the right questions. That's the job of salespeople. I never sold anybody anything. I helped them make some informed decisions, because you ask the questions, you get the answers. But let's talk about the marketplace that the special needs group serves. Who are these people? Well, the special needs and disability markets, believe it or not, are 2 very distinct markets. You can have families with young kids and returning vets and the elderly, maybe folks with pre- and post-surgical situations, the occasional mobility where I wrenched my back, I twisted my knee, I broke my ankle, and I'm supposed to go on vacation in a week or 2. Believe it or not, one of the largest segments of the market that we serve are what we call slow walkers. You've seen these people. They're fine. You put them in a supermarket, they make it to the back to the frozen food section, they get some gourmet ice cream, some fish sticks, some broccoli spears, back to the cashier, back to the parking lot, and they're fine. However, you can take that same individual and plunk them in a big box store like a Super Home Depot or Lowe's or a Super Walmart or whatever, Target, whatever. In those kind of environments, these same folks that were great in the supermarket might opt for that scooter in the front of the store because they might not have the stamina to make it through a big box store. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Could be a little arthritis, could be some neuropathy, maybe some COPD, maybe vertigo, but whatever the case, slow walkers are an amazing market for you to be aware of. Then, on a totally separate budget line item, if you will, we have those with the 24/7, 365 chronic disabilities, 24/7. And one thing about disability, unfortunately, it doesn't care who you are, what you look like, what you do when you get out of work, and where you come from. If it wants you, it's going to get you. And admittedly, disability does have one demographic it tends to favor. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk about a watershed event that took place in 1990 called the Americans with Disabilities Act. This was huge. And if you were born before 1973, you remember the United States of America that physically looked a lot different than it looks today. Because prior to 1990, and if you were born in 73, you were 17 by 90, you should remember this stuff. But you remember the United States in 89 that we didn't have cutouts in street corner curbs. So folks in mobility equipment could do something as easy as cross a street. We didn't have ramps into buildings for access. We didn't have grab rails in restrooms and shower stalls. We didn't have accessibly friendly, or as they were referred to at one point in time, handicapped parking spaces. So really, what the Americans with Disabilities Act did, it was enacted in 1990, and they put some more teeth in it about 18 years later in 2008. What it did was it recognized and protected the rights of Americans with disabilities. Barriers got removed. As I indicated, most of them were physical barriers. And to let folks with disabilities have a shot at enjoying as full and complete a life as possible. And often on the left-hand side there, you see some of the icons, lexions, that have become part of the language. It prohibits discrimination, is what ADA does. And ironically enough, ADA, because did a lot of volunteer work with an organization that contributed tremendously to the language of this act. This act was modeled very closely after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, only it was a different audience. It just happened to be people that had disabilities. And what I'd like to do is at a very high level break disabilities into two categories. First, we have physical, and that would include, and if you're dialed in, and if you're engaged and you're in the moment, you can spot the physical stuff. Because you're looking at mobility, stamina, sight, hearing, and speech. And those are usually readily detectable if someone has an issue. But disabilities can also be invisible, and those can include emotional disabilities, learning disorders, and believe it or not, addictive disabilities also fall in that category. And I was reading an article in one of the journals a few months back that said invisible disability is going to outpace physical disabilities in about another 5 or 6 years. And that's scary. But if you're, like I say, somewhat dialed in, the physical stuff is easy to identify. And here's where we have fun as business people, is by diving into some numbers. Because 20% of the U.S. population, and that's over 63 million people, live each day with some type of chronic disability. So when folks talk about this, or I'm at a cocktail party and somebody says, oh yeah, that's a niche market. I'm sorry, you give me 63 million anything, and that's a pretty darn big niche. 20% is not a niche, it's mainstream. And again, 63 million Americans, and here's some of the numbers that those 63 million Americans represent. And I'll give you a caveat on these numbers. They're old, but they're the numbers that are used on the tests, because each of the 3 modules in our certification program is followed by a brief test. I wouldn't worry about the test too much if I were you, because I wrote the test and I passed it, so you should be all right. But these folks spend a minimum of $13.6 billion annually on travel, taking 32 million trips a year in the process. And this stat absolutely knocks me out. Over 24 million Americans with disabilities said that they would travel or travel more frequently if their special needs were better met. Now, I'm not going to tell you that anybody with a special need or a disability isn't going to behave like some potential regular people, where they want the 7-category upgrade on the 5-category ship, or a 499 F&B credit or onboard credit for the 299 cabin they bought. Not that you'd ever get clients like that as a retail agent. God knows I never did, right? But these people, by and large, ladies and gentlemen, just want to be taken care of. And, you know, a lot of folks will say, well, you know what? It's not easy dealing with disabled people. Well, let me give you a trick and a tip. We travel people by nature tend to be people. We tend to be pretty empathetic. And most empathetic people, if they see somebody with a really hard-pressed disability, might be inclined to say, oh, you poor thing, are you okay? And I got to tell you, well, that's well-intentioned. It's the last thing you want to do, because all this marketplace wants to be treated like is everybody else. You're going to have to ask 1 or 2 additional questions, perhaps, to qualify their needs. But you treat them like you treat everybody else. Give them care, give them concern, give them respect, give them empathy, and give them great service. And they're a great source of leads, referrals, because this is a very close-knit marketplace. It really is. Now, disability, if you think it's a niche, it affects 1 in 5 families, 1 in 5 American households contains an individual with a disability, providing nobody in the house has yet reached the age of 65. Because disability does indeed have one market segment it likes a little bit more than the others. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because these things that house our spirits and our souls, these things we call bodies, well, it's just a physical machine. And if you've owned a machine for any period of time, you know what happens. You own a car for 10 years, you take it in for more service. It needs a little more TLC. Bodies are the same way. And at age 62, I'm here to tell you, I'm finding body parts that didn't exist in my 30s, and I'm looking for a few that used to. But that's a whole nother story. The market expenditures of this market, let's get into these, because these numbers are staggering. The disability market has $220 billion in discretionary income. Again, spending $13.6 billion a year on travel, 32 million trips, 340 million trips a year. And I know you've seen some of these numbers before, but there's a reason you're seeing them again. And those 24 million people who would travel more frequently. 85% of the market, this is a new number for you, travels with others. And when you think about it, that makes sense. And important to remember that all of these numbers do not reflect anything dealing with the special needs market that's not considered chronically disabled. The occasional twisted knee and broken ankle and wrenched back and slow walker. And I mention all of this only because when you're a sales professional, it helps to have a business plan of some sort. It doesn't have to be a manifesto. It can be on the back of a cocktail napkin, but you need a roadmap to know where you want to go. And when you're thinking about it, the way I always used to look at it when I was a retail agent, and I did it for 6 years, I looked for clients that had 2 attributes, time and money. And when you look at this market, they've got both. And if that's not enough, here comes Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey with my generation, the baby boomers. Those of us born between January of 46 and December of 64, and there's a whole bunch of us. 85 million in North America, 74 in the States, another 11 million in Canada. And the baby boom generation, which was the largest mass of humanity to come through a pipeline in one time frame, started turning 65 on January 1st of 2011. And we're doing it at the rate of 10,000 a day since then, and it's not stopping until 2030. It makes it the fastest growing demographic worldwide. So when you're thinking about your marketing plan, you're looking at the disability market. You know, you talk about another marketplace here, that the mature market. I should be part of it. I refuse to join. But it is a hotbed of time and money. And about the baby boomers, real quick. We're a very unique generation because we were the first generation to grow up with travel as a birthright. I remember being on a plane in 1963 with my mom, and you would have thought everybody on that plane, regardless of what class of service they were sitting in, were either going to a wedding, a funeral, or weekend religious services, because they were dressed to the nines. The only people you see like that in an airport these days are travel professionals attempting to get upgraded to first class. Everybody else is in yoga pants and sweatpants and whatever other thing they're doing. The baby boomers also, ironically, were the first generation that was marketed to with the pitch, remember Burger King folks, have it your way. And our generation responded by saying, wait a minute, hang on here. We can have it the way we want it, and not the way you're telling us we have to have it. Cool, we like that. And that brought the age of personalization. Now, I don't know about you, but you can personalize just about anything, and I've got placemats, coasters in my home, even a blanket that have pictures of my twin 24-year-olds at various stages of their lives. So baby boomers were brought up traveling, okay? They were told we could have it however we want it, and we like things with our own unique imprint on them, okay? The experiential travel thing you hear a lot about. Everybody wants to do it their way. So when you add all that up and you take the psychographics and the demographics and you mush them together, it's a great travel target because tonight at age 62, I'm going to go see a band at the Hard Rock down here in Hollywood, Florida, that I saw for the first time back in 1977. And a few years have passed since then, but we just keep on sugaling. Again, it's really critical to ask the right questions. I can't reinforce this enough. And we're at the conclusion of the first module overview. What we're going to do now is get into the equipment. And the reason why it's really important to ask right questions is an example. If you get somebody that's not an experienced traveler and you say, you know what, I got this gorgeous hotel you want to go to in Hollywood, Florida called the Diplomat. It's oceanfront. Now, the neophyte consumer traveler might think, oh, an oceanfront hotel is an oceanfront hotel is an oceanfront hotel, and it is, except when your room's not on the oceanfront side. So they might be thinking you're sending them to an oceanfront hotel, they're going to be in an oceanfront room. As it happens, this particular property, if you're facing west as opposed to east, it's not a bad view. You get the intercoastal, which is a lovely view in Florida. But you can't over or underestimate anybody's intelligence. So when we look at the most popular accessibility equipment, and across the top line here, you have a wheelchair, then you've got a power scooter, and then you have a power chair. And the difference between the scooter and the chair is the chair operates on a joystick. And unless your clients use these at home regularly, you really, really, really don't want to ever have them try it out on vacation. We have literally pulled people out of the corners of elevators on cruise ships in these things. It's not pretty. But when you look at these three pieces, you might say, yeah, a scooter's a scooter, a wheelchair's a chair, and a power chair's a power chair. And it's right to a certain extent, but there are differences. I'll get into that on the next slide. You have your walker. Joy on the beach is something that's really cool. We'll have a slide about that later. Your shower chairs, your commode chairs, patient lifts. Chairs that incline, for example, if people have a hard time with bad knees, bad ankles, bad hips, they get them from a seated position to a standing position, even things like hospital beds. And these are what folks use the most. And underneath in the respiratory category, we have oxygen in a variety of shapes, sizes, colors, and formats. But let's talk about the difference just real quick, because this is stuff that impacts you on a daily basis if you ask the right questions. If your clients are in a power chair, you'll notice all these mobility devices come in 3 different sizes, and it's based on the weight of the client. But if your clients are in a power chair, any size, they have to be in an accessible cabin because this thing is too wide to fit through a standard cabin on a cruise ship. Excuse me for a water break. However, if they're in either a wheelchair or a scooter, only the bariatric, the very largest of those two pieces, require your clients to be in an accessible cabin. Heavy duty and standard wheelchairs and scooters will fit in a standard cabin on a standard cruise ship. There is one exception. We have a slide on that. But here you go. There are differences, and it's important for you, if you're booking clients on vacation, to know these differences. Again, we don't want you to be medical professionals, just travel professionals that can serve the market effectively. You got walkers and a rollator. The difference between these two, a lot of people will call this second image here the rollator. They'll call that a walker, but it's not. And the difference is the rollator has handlebars and brakes. It's kind of like for bike wannabeers. It has a foldable seat, so you can actually sit down, take a break if you have stamina issues. And there's a little basket under that seat to stash your goodies and, the wheels. Whereas walkers, you'll see them sometimes with tennis balls on the front of them. Now, Joy on the beach, this thing is so super cool. Comes in a duffel bag. Those tires that you see, those yellow suckers, they are rubber, rather large, come pre-inflated with air. The rest of this thing is made out of extruded aluminum, the same thing they make airplanes out of, so you know it's durable. And this is a quick, dry mesh that's also extremely durable, and you'll notice there's even a seat belt in there. So all you need is a companion to just tilt this thing back, and somebody wants to stick their toes in the water that's bedridden or whatever gets a chance. It's pretty special. So there's a couple of different things. Now on the scooter, the only real exception on scooters and cabins is the foldable. These things weigh 53 pounds. They're pretty light. And it can accommodate up to 250 pounds. So you can fit about 3, 4, maybe even 5 of these in your standard car trunk. But it is required for standard staterooms on Canard Line, okay? That's the only exception to the rule that we're aware of. And then, it's funny, at Special Needs Group, special request is where we really step up. We one time had a client about 3 years ago. An agent had a client sailing on a cruise line out of Venice. I think it was MSC. And the client had a service animal. And the service animal was special needs and needed special diet dog food that could not be exported from the States to Italy for some unknown reason. So in any event, MSC went looking for it over in Italy. They couldn't find it. The client did everything they could. They couldn't find it. We found the food for the puppy. The puppy had a nice cruise, even had a doggy midnight buffet. It was beautiful. But there's nothing that we normally can't take care of. About the only disability, if you will, that we do not service is dialysis. There is one company for that. We can talk about it if you have a question. We serve all the major cruise lines, and we're actually the exclusive mobility company for Norwegian, Regent Seven Seas, and Oceania. But one thing about the larger cruise lines, folks, each of them have access desks. And if you're having clients that have special needs, disability, mobility issues, where they can really be of tremendous benefit to you is when it comes to Shorex. When, not all shore excursions were created the same. Some tend not to be mobility friendly at all. Some are more suited to folks with mobility issues. So your access departments at the major cruise lines are a great resource for you. I'll also say that river cruises in the States are not a problem because, again, we're the only place in the world that has the Americans with Disabilities Act or anything as stringent as the ADA. When you're looking at river cruises in Europe, however, river cruises in Europe, for a couple of reasons, are really tough on mobility equipment. Wheelchairs aren't a problem. Walkers, rollators, commodes, shower commodes, those things typically aren't a problem. But unlike the big blue water ships that dock stern to bow in port or bow to stern, depending on which way you're looking, when you go on a river cruise, these things don't go front to back. They go side to side. So it's physically impossible to get a mobility scooter or a power chair up the stairs on one ship, up the ladder over to the other ship, carry it over. It can be tough. One or two of the lines do a better job than others on any given day. I would definitely tell you on river cruises, please check with your river cruise operator. It's an amazing way to see Europe. I did it with my boys when they were 17 years old, and it just isn't as well suited to a lot of mobility circumstances as other vacation alternatives, but check with the line. In terms of our footprint at Special Needs Group, we started out serving the cruise industry exclusively. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner on our logo, Special Needs at Sea. And then 6 years ago, we branched out and started doing land in these destinations where we serve the ships. And to be more inclusive, we're also a Special Needs Group. So yeah, we're a floor wax and a dessert topping for those of you that remember old Saturday Night Lives. And we are celebrating 10 years. And last year in 2016, we serviced 165 metropolitan areas in 37 countries. Now, your clients can be going one way and boarding in Czechoslovakia and terminating in Copenhagen, and that's not a problem. We'll get into that in a little bit. But any place that's served by a cruise port, we can handle that city and surrounding area. So think about San Francisco, think about Seattle, Portland, either coast, Maine or Oregon. Those markets, wherever you have a ship that can dock, we're there. New York, New Jersey, whatever. We also have offices in Seattle. Our headquarters is down here in Dania Beach, Florida. We also have an office in Italy. We serve all of Italy. So the chances are that we're going to be able to take care of your clients wherever they want to go. And this list is constantly expanding. You'll see more stuff in Asia on here as the years go by. So that's it on equipment and some of that stuff. And on the third module, what we've done is create what I call where the rubber meets the road. Um, in Module 3, what we did was create 4 real-life scenarios. So while you're watching images on the screen, you'll listen to 2 individuals. One individual plays the role of a patient with a special need, a client potentially with a special need, or one of their loved ones or family members. The other individual on the call is a accessible travel savvy professional. Because what we wanted to portray are the circumstances you're most likely to bump up against and give you some best practices, show you how you work with this market and how to probe and qualify effectively. And like I say, the entire certification program is 65 minutes and you don't have to take it in one shot. But there is one question I am going to ask you to rotate in with your clients and prospects for the next 60 days. At least do it for me till Thanksgiving and see what happens. When you're busy gathering name, and even if it's a repeat client, you're reconfirming contact info and emails and all that good stuff. Before you get into where do you want to go, ask them one question. Does anyone in your traveling party require mobility or oxygen assistance? And you're going to want to do that for a couple of reasons. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, if you don't ask, you can't get. So as a salesperson, you're supposed to ask good questions. And the reality of it is life changes. I don't care if they've been a lifelong client of yours, things change. The other reason is that for some folks, disability still attaches a stigma of some variety. And a lot of consumers don't know that this stuff is out there to serve their needs. So they don't even think to ask because they just don't think it's possible. And a lot of the travel professionals that we've been speaking to in the last 6 years that this program's been out in the street didn't have any idea either. Because there's a lot of information out there. It's not your fault. It's just if it doesn't hit your radar, it doesn't hit your radar. So it really is critical to ask the right questions because you know what, folks? If you ask that question and you could very easily get a response like, well, Aunt Edna needs oxygen, but she wasn't going to go because, she needs oxygen. And here's the reality, okay? You're doing a family reunion trip, a destination wedding, whatever. If Aunt Edna doesn't go, there's a darn good chance her husband, Uncle Ed, doesn't go. And if mom and dad don't go, the 3 kids and their spouses don't go. And you could be on a river cruise line, and that's a tour conductor right there. So it is really, really critical to ask these questions. And I guarantee you, I'd be shocked if you don't have somebody give you an affirmative response by Thanksgiving if you ask this of every client. A little bit more about the company. I told you about the destinations. I told you about the countries. We make it easy. The way it works for your clients, it couldn't be easier. The equipment's waiting for them in their stateroom on the ship. For some of the lines, we have kiosk service in the terminal. We have them in Seattle. We have them in NCL in Miami. We have them at Holland America. We're doing a beta test down here right now at Royal Caribbean on Allure and Oasis, or Allure and Harmony, I should say. They keep changing them. But the stuff is right there waiting for them. Clients can use it on ship, at the resort, at the hotel. They can take it off the ship, off the resort, off the hotel property. When their trip is over, if they're on a cruise, they take their carry-on luggage when it's time to disembark, their 5-pack of Caribbean booze, and they leave the equipment where they found it. In a hotel, they leave it where they found it. With hotels, it's usually one of 3 places where they will claim it. It's usually the front desk, the bellman, or the concierge. Varies based on the property, and we'll give you the heads up prior to your client's travel once we know where we're going to be able to deliver the equipment. As I mentioned, we're exclusive with NCL and Regent and Oceania. And if those special needs get a little crazy, we get even crazier. Importantly, 2 things. You make commission on every rental, and we're not a travel agency. We won't compete for your clients. The reason I exist and 2 of the team that are the travel industry care team, Denitza and Jimmy, are on the line listening. The only reason we're employed by Special Needs Group is because we'd rather do business with travel professionals than with consumers. We know how nuts they are. You can have them. We'll gladly pay you to take care of them for us, okay? So let me say this about that, and I'm being dead serious. If you do start asking some of the right questions, it's good chance, fairly decent likelihood, you might get people with some circumstances that are really outside your comfort zone to service. Fret not. Ask the client when is a good time for us to call them. Excuse me. And then just give us a call with your contact information and the client, because we want to be able to source the booking back to you. We'll call the client. We'll assess the need. If the client would like, we'll happily book them whatever they need. And as we're hanging up the phone with the client, we're going to be calling you as we're sending you your electronic confirmation, but we're going to call you and give you a heads up and say, hey, thanks for the lead. We closed your client. This is what they're getting. This is what it's costing. This is what you're making. Okay? So we really do have a goal of delivering an accessible world, and you're the best partners we could ever ask for in that regard, okay? Because you can get to places we can't. You make the commission, as I mentioned, on every rental. The URL is up there to get into our agent portal. It's just specialneedsgroup.com/agents. You do have to register with us if you're not already. And to do that, we need whatever industry numeric identifier you use to claim commissions with your vendors. Once you register with us, you get access into the certification program. Now, I will tell you this about giving us your email address when you register. I'm on every agent list in the industry. I get everything you get and then some. There are some vendors that once they get your email address, they want to be your inbox's best buddy and they beat you up. Not us. We respect you. We respect your time. We respect your inbox. You're going to hear from us about once a month. Okay? Here you go. If you get certified by Halloween, you're going to go into a drawing for an iPad for our certified agents. If you happen to give us a piece of business anytime from July 1st through Halloween, you might have done this already, you're automatically entered into a drawing for a separate iPad. And if you happen to be certified and screw up and give us a booking, I mean, we're asking for a lot, but each booking our certified agents give us will count for a double entry. You know, we really appreciate the effort that you take to get certified. It means a lot to us, and there's a slide here that we have to put back in the deck because we just redid this deck. When I tell you we really don't want to do business with consumers unless we have to, I'm not kidding. So if you go to the Special Needs Group website and you look in the rental equipment tab, you'll see if you need assistance planning your vacation, please contact one of our certified accessible travel advocates. The consumer clicks on that box, they go to a straight Google search map, they pop in their zip code, how many miles they want it to search, 10, 15, whatever, and they get back the name, the address, the phone number, the email contact information for our certified agents in their locale, the ones closest to them. And it's a lot of fun when we do trade shows and have agents coming up to us thanking us for leads. So we really do mean it. This is the most supplier-friendly company, I should say agent-friendly company on the supply side that I've ever worked with in 47 years. And I've done a lot of strange things in this business. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you again so much for your time. If you want to contact us, the 800 number's up on the screen. And the reason you don't have Jimmy or Denise's personal email address up there, and we have agents at, you see, Jimmy and Denise, we're really tough on them, but we do give them a couple of days off every week, and occasionally they get a vacation or a sick day. But this email inbox is monitored hourly over at Special Needs Group. It's been my pleasure to be your presenter today, and I hope you have questions. There's no such thing as dumb questions, just stupid answers, so don't worry about your job. I'll do my best on this end. Lorene?
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to work with Jim. He does great presentations, as you've seen. He's a huge supporter. Special Needs is a huge supporter of NACTA, and it's always there. Usually when we're at a conference, they have their scooter races, which is totally fun.
They're not races, darn it. That's a liability issue. It's scooting for charity, and they get to do a slalom thing.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not a race. I would never advocate the reckless use of a scooter like parachuting that we have in that one slide. That's a verboten. No. No.
But other things I want to remind people of that speaking as an agent and speaking as an individual that had a situation happen this year, sometimes we don't even think about life situations. So I want to put out an example where we needed support. For any of you who know me, you know Gail's my better half. Well, she was playing pickleball. Oh my God, something athletic, more than water aerobics and walking around the neighborhood. Playing pickleball, and she detached her Achilles tendon. Ow! Which
that sounds like she was in a pickle.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So that's one of life's little things that happen that you don't normally need support. We're both healthy, we're both fairly active. Suddenly, out of the blue, sorry.
She was in a pickle.
There you go. Sorry about that. I had my window open. The joys of webinars and working from home. Anyway, so we needed to get some support, and special needs was right there. We were able to get a mobility scooter, got everything taken care of, and under normal circumstances, we would never need to do anything like that. We don't have anybody in our lives that are in a wheelchair on a normal basis, so it wasn't something we normally do. But because of people like Jim making it well known, this is a service they provide, how can we help you? It was all taken care of. We actually had a great vacation, which made it wonderful. So I want to thank you, Jim, and also
hey, listen, I'm just a mouthpiece for the team. Let me just tell one quick anecdote, Lorraine. When the hurricanes hit last month, ladies and gentlemen, the cruise lines repositioned ships in 3 days, 21 times. So every time a ship got repositioned for an embarkation or a termination port, our equipment had to move. As the storms hit, we were without power at the office for a few days. The staff was working in a building with a flat roof on their personal cell phones without air conditioning, making sure clients and your clients got protected. And our success rate over that period was 99.4%. So, you know what? The industry is a service-driven industry. What we do at Special Needs Group is only about service. So we're going to take care of your clients because we realize for a lot of folks, this is the difference between go and no-go. This is not just something whimsical.
Right. Right, absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that, you turn around and give us the commission for our clients, you make it available. If there's any questions, you're available to ask the questions. I just really want to tell you that from me as well, I'll just speak for the group because they're on mute and I'm not. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love you.
So let me look at the questions. And look, we have several people saying, thank you, Jim. I agree. Thank you. Look at that. Look, I wasn't even looking at my screen when I was saying all this, too. So,
listen, it's truly my pleasure to be doing this at this stage of my career, to be able to help out, give back, and make, hopefully your lives a little bit better. And you can enrich other people's lives. Nobody's got it better than me. Trust me.
So, Jim, I know you have the training modules, which we basically just went over. If somebody is already certified, would you recommend that they do it again as a refresh?
I got to tell you something. I've run a number of national sales organizations throughout my career in the industry. And my salespeople in 2 of those environments had to do mandatory 2 training episodes a year. 1 I picked, 1 they picked. I every year pick the same one, Sales 101, because you know what? The basics never go out of style. And in the course of doing what we do, sometimes we forget to do the basics. So that refresher course is always advised, and then go for something else for professional growth, by all means. And we will be revising the deck probably sometime in 2018 because there are some recent statistics that really dwarf some of the numbers you saw. But for the test, that's why we kept the numbers where they are. If you are certified, the new module will not be mandatory, but we're going to strongly suggest you pay attention to it. For folks that come into the certification process, when the new materials are unveiled, that will be mandatory because it'll be a whole new deck for them.
Perfect, perfect. And, you know, Jim, let me just say, you get a little bit of a break from updating this. There has been so many disasters going on that you have been part of. I think you can have a little break. I think we can look at material that may be a little outdated, numbers a little off. It's okay.
You know what? Here's the funny thing, and this goes to show the relationship we have with NACTA. Before the Hurricane Irma hit, okay, and we're responding to Hurricane Harvey, our port agent in Galveston that takes care of us in Galveston was one of the first responders in Galveston. And we had already sent a bunch of materials, relief materials, to Galveston, and we were scheduled to have a meeting with the South Florida NACTA chapter Thursday evening at the New Margaritaville in Hollywood Beach near the Diplomat. And the NACTA agents are great about bringing in relief stuff. We were taking care of the shipping, and we were donating a mobility scooter to Camilla's house down here on behalf of the chapter, being the chapter of the year for 2016. And we had to cancel the meeting. NACTA had to cancel the meeting because everybody was buttoning up for Irma. So we've been doing relief work for the islands. We feel it's a privilege to give back and serve. So you'll be seeing stuff coming down the pike when we have initiatives of that kind, and what we'd ask you to do is step up and just thank God you're not in those people's shoes.
Yep. You know, and it's amazing you mentioned that. And Jim, you and I know each other in addition to just doing webinars. And you know I live in Sonoma County, which is being affected right now.
You guys, fire, pestilence. Next thing you're going to get is locusts out there. I just pray for your safety.
Thank you. And for any of you who are on this recording who knows me, as soon as I'm done recording this and uploading the recording safely to the YouTube account so that people can view it later, I'm leaving my house to go volunteer.
Oh, gee, what a shock.
Yeah, right? Shocking.
Right.
I don't deal with free time on my hands, so I need to give.
Guys like that get bored too easily.
So thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody who is on the recording and listening to it. And again, Jim, as always, thank you for the love that you give the people and NACTA.
Listen, you two out there, you kids just stay safe, all right?
Thank you much, sir. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.